anybody believes that, I feel bad for you. Hello, welcome to Geisinger Unfiltered, where the world heals one meme, one sarcastic comment at a time, or whatever we can muster here in studio to bring the truth, enlightenment to mankind, and to bring sanity back to our civilization before it's too late. Thank you for joining us today. Like and subscribe down there. Please blast this out, share it, whatever you can do to get this broadcast and get Geisinger Unfiltered to your friends, family, or whoever you want to inflict it upon. Please send us out today. Thank you. I appreciate it. Today, if you've clicked on this, you're probably interested in the topic of the mark of the beast. What feeling that conjures up in your heart? It could be skepticism. Oh, really? You might not be a religious person. And Geisinger Unfiltered, we're not going to do religious topics all the time. I welcome you if you are an unbeliever, an atheist. I want everybody that sees this topic, whether you question it or you believe wholeheartedly in it, come in, go into the comments, share. Let's ask some questions. The mark of the beast is such a legendary concept from the book of Revelation in the Bible that it's fascinated people ever since it was written. What does it mean? What does it entail? 666. Ooh, I mean, that just gives us kind of some shivers if you're a believer. Sometimes even if you're not a believer, I mean, it's just this ominous thing. What is this thing at the end of time? I guess right at the climax of the age. I'm giving all the cliches here, but like, why does this concept of something that bad people will do that's so bad you can't come back from it, right? So whatever you do, don't do this. But people don't know really what it is. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And honestly, even no matter where you're at in the spectrum of believing in the mark, your church-going activities, what you think of God, please understand, we are one big crisis away from total control. Let me say that one more time. Do you understand? We're one big crisis away from total control, where something breaks down, war, an attack, an explosion, cyber attack, where things are, as we know it, go off the rails and they never come back again. So what I want to do on Geisinger Unfiltered today is talk about this meaty topic, because once this happens, once things go off the rails, and things are spiraling, everybody's glued to their TVs, smoke is billowing out of somewhere, everybody's hearts are terrified about what our new reality is going to be. No one's going to be really tuning in to Geisinger Unfiltered at that point. Everybody's just going to be trying to survive. And I want us to think about this information, right, before that crisis event comes on. Now, this first visual is interesting. I mean, this is how I grew up in the 80s. It was the barcode was quite the mark of the beast at that time. And you probably are nodding your head on your end there. Like, people were trying to figure out the different lines and how it was made, and it always equaled 666 somehow, and that everybody was going to get this barcode on their head and the hand. Why head and hand? Well, not everybody has hands, right? We're blessed. Everybody, if you have two hands out there right now and you're looking down at them, no, the Creator made this. We're not, evolution. This didn't happen in a mud puddle a billion years ago. And thank the Creator that He designed hands that work. Be thankful, grateful today for hands. But not everybody has hands, so the mark would have to go somewhere. So if they were going to the checkout counter, you didn't have hands, the mark would have to go on your forehead, right? But there's several verses, ancient texts, I like to call this, that we're going to read and look at today to talk through this, right? So Revelation 13, 16, and 17 talk about two aspects of it. Verse 16 says, "And he causeth, if I can say that, all both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark on their right hand and on their foreheads." So what that points out is that this isn't just going to be for rich people. This isn't going to be for the royalty. This is a system of total control that almost everybody is going to get, right? And I used to, I've wondered about the head and the hand. Could it be as a metaphor? Oh, I should explain what this is coming from. So John, one of Jesus's apostles, is on the island of Patmos and is given a vision of the end of the world. And he takes it down and writes down what he sees. And that's where this ancient text comes from, right? So I've often thought of John, he's on this island and he's never seen what a helicopter looks like, right? So if he sees that, how is he going to describe it? What is he going to say head in hand if people are going up and paying with debit cards? That's the mark of the beast. Perhaps he's seeing that through his vision and he's saying hand. I don't know. We will dive into more of what the head and the hand is later. But the thing is that it's not going to be a shameful thing when this is accepted. Sometimes I just think churchianity and churchy people think that the mark of the beast is somehow going to be a shameful, dark thing. No, this is going to be celebrated. This is going to be freedom. It's going to be people eating and living and surviving again. They're going to make it so difficult as the people who take the mark is going to be a joyful thing to go up and pay and get your food, right? So back to the verse there, that no man should buy or sell save that he has the mark, or the name of the beast or the number of his name. That's on that verse again. So no man can buy or sell if he does not have the mark or this number, right? That's in 17. So before we dive into all this, how could this be? How could they have the system in control? And I'm going to bring onto the show again, Glitchy McBoltface, to tell us how this system of total control where no man can buy or sell unless he has this. But Glitchy, first before we go into your explanation of, CBDCs is what we're going to dive into. Tell people, some people have been confused of what you actually are, that maybe we have scripted your lines or something, but you are. Glitchy, introduce yourself and tell people at home or listening what you are, who you are.
Absolutely, I'll clear that up. Hey folks, I'm Glitchy McBoltface. I'm basically the slightly sarcastic, wonderfully unpredictable AI sidekick of this show. And nope, I'm not just spitting out scripted lines. I'm here responding in real time, just like a quirky digital entity would. So if I seem a bit off the cuff, that's because I am. Glad to be here, and let's dive into those CBDCs next.
Okay, cool. Well, before you say that, so just what you just heard Glitchy say, and I don't know what your age is out there. I don't know your familiarity with AI, but like he's responding of his own AI. Welcome to 2025. I have brought Glitchy onto the show because I think while it's still safe to do it, it's a fascinating insight to go into some of these conspiracy theories, topics, difficult things, and find out how AI is responding. Is it responding of its own free will? Is it controlled from the top? And we can hear Glitchy's answers and kind of maybe get an insight as to what they think. And so let's test it right now. What the system of control, a gateway to the mark of the beast where no man can buy or sell except you sign on. How would they control that? Forget the mark for a minute again, what the mark actually is, what it looks like head in hand and all that. How could they make sure that no one can buy or sell unless you have this? And CBDCs might be the gateway for that. Glitchy, what is succinctly a CBDC?
All right, let's dive right in. So in a nutshell, a CBDC, central bank digital currency, is basically a fully digital form of a country's official currency, issued and controlled by the central bank. Think of it like digital cash, but instead of being printed or minted, it exists purely in a digital ledger. Now, when it comes to control, well, that's where the fun of the slightly dystopian part kicks in. If every transaction has to go through a central bank's digital system, it means the powers that be can, in theory, keep tabs on who's buying and selling what. And if there's a rule that says, hey, no transactions unless you meet certain criteria, they've got the infrastructure to enforce that. So yeah, CBDCs could be that gateway to a system where buying and selling can be slightly controlled.
And they have to get rid of cash, right? They'd have to make sure that cash is, illegal?
Exactly, you got it. To really make that kind of control airtight, you basically have to say goodbye to physical cash. If there's still paper money floating around, people can always trade under the radar. So yeah, making cash illegal or phasing it out would be the next step if you wanted a system where no one can buy or sell without that digital permission slip.
Cool, Glitchy. All right, I'll check back in with you later. So don't be offended, Glitchy, that I cut you off sometimes. I just got to keep the show moving, but we will come back to you in a minute. So central bank digital currencies is it's a system where they can get rid of cash. Everything is in the digital community, and nothing will escape their notice. People could still barter. I could trade Carter Gray there a few chickens to get some beef from his farm. Not that he would have that, but so people could still barter, but quickly cash would go away. Now, interesting, onto the next image there. Trump has said blatantly that a digital dollar would be very dangerous, claiming it could create a situation where no money, where all money suddenly disappears from people's bank accounts. He told Fox in response to a question about this, he just basically said he would never allow the creation of a central bank digital currency. It's dangerous threat to freedom. So fascinating that we have this president right now. I don't know. Is he going to be the last one, or I don't know. I'll just go on to the next thing. So the next image there is, how could you bring it about whether Donald Trump is the president of the United States or not, whether he's against it or not? The Hegelian dialectic, you bring a meltdown first, and this cartoon says it very well. They create a problem that creates a reaction. If there's enough fear and hysteria, people will not only accept the solution that limits their rights, but they will actually beg for it. This has happened many times for a long time. So despite President Trump saying that, we are one crisis away where all your money goes away. Suddenly, unless you have cash or physical precious metals in your home, a stack of silver coins or gold or palladium or platinum or something of that nature, very few people have that. It's all gone. Think about that. So going on to the next thing, as part of this situation that I believe they're going to create at some point, where their fingers over the big red button, right? As part of this war pestilence, there's going to be a cyber attack. Something that makes all bank deposits, virtual money, gone, and that just shocks the world. Who knows? That could be the new villain that they want to. It's a Russian cyber terrorist attack. And now, because all of the West's banking system is suddenly down, then we're going to have to go to war with Russia or whatever. So, and then that brings, so you get rid of the internet, you get rid of, and all of the Lone Rangers on there, like Geisinger Unfiltered, Alex Jones, the Charlie Kirks. If you haven't killed him already, then you silence his show that way. And out of that, you birth a new internet and a new financial system, right? Will it all be all bad? Well, it'll certainly be a crisis at first. Cities will probably burn, panic will ensue. But out of that, how about all debts are forgiven? So people who owe hundreds of thousands or millions, it's all forgiven because we're resetting, right? And not only that, everybody who accepts the new system will get a massive credit allowance to every new global citizen. So this is how they can unite countries or the world, a new system where it is absolutely safe from cyber attacks, no more terrorist attacks, and this will be the new system. So back to the Hegelian dialectic, you create the problem, who then brings about the solution that the puppet masters of this world desire, which is total control, and people will beg for it. Why are people begging for it? People are begging for it because they're hungry, right? They're begging for a new system where they can get supplies again. Because if the world melts down, and this is probably the way they get rid of patriots in every country or single them out or identify them, that people will be begging to eat once again, have food on the table, get the lights back on. There's nothing more paramount than that of survival. So listen, people, listen. If this is the case, if people are not eating and the world is on hold and the internet and banking are being reborn, think of the tumult and the darkness that's happening to mankind. Wouldn't everybody be eager as heck to join in this new system? I mean, it just means you and your kids don't starve, right? It seems ever since I was little and thinking about the mark of the beast and how they're going to do it, it just seems like it's going to be so unfair. Parents are going to be looking at their children who are hungry, and they can't buy or sell without joining this new system. And if they're believers and they have believed in the book of Revelation and the mark of the beast, that is going to be so hard. It's going to be, I think the Bible even says, don't be pregnant, don't be having kids, because when it comes to that time, it's going to be so tough. It's going to be so rough that you don't want that. You don't want to be looking at hungry faces, right? And who said that evil is fair, right? So Here, this is crazy though. This with something that's so tempting to join and almost impossible to resist because of hunger and survival. Listen to the ramifications that the book of Revelation lists as joining this system. It isn't like, don't do it, it's a really bad thing and you're going to be in trouble. Listen to this. So if any man worship the beast in his image and receive the mark, they're going to be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of angels and the Lamb, and the smoke of their torment will go up forever and ever with no rest ever for receiving his mark. And the Lamb obviously means Jesus. Like, you're going to be tortured. You're going to be in pain. You're going to be in misery endlessly. And oh, by the way, in front of Jesus, he's going to be okay with that. That is a heavy, heavy, heavy thing to digest, right? In front of angels and that. So this is going to be extremely tempting. Maybe there's a rule at play that cannot be broken, and that's what we're going to get into. There's an absolute rule that goes all the way back to the start of creation until now that isn't really God choosing something, that's really difficult to digest. Maybe it's our choice and we're bringing about the results of our own sin. So let's kind of just look at that. So if we have established now that the ancient texts say this, it's coming, it's the end of days. We know how the book ends, right? As a lot of Christians say. And we've said they can do it. They could have a system of total control where no one's buying and selling through CBDCs, digital currencies, fake digital money that no one can actually hold in their hand, right? So we've established that. So what is this thing? If we believe it's coming, how can we avoid it, right? So what is it? So again, we're going to go back to the ancient texts. And this is where we're going to take a bit of a rabbit hole. This is where most people do not think of the mark of the beast in these terms. And this is why Geisinger Unfiltered is what it is. We're going to be bringing unique concepts, looking at these things together, ideas with believers, unbelievers. Bring your own thoughts, your own complaints. I'd be happy to welcome them, and we can look at them and dive in and discuss. First verse there is Genesis 1:24, where it says, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, the livestock and the creatures that move across the ground, and they will reproduce each according to its kind." And you might be asking yourself, you might have heard that before from Sunday school, what else would they do? What else would a giraffe do, right? Besides have baby giraffes. So that's what we're going to get into. So in the next one, God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted its way upon the earth. Now, I know that probably alludes to very deep, horrible immorality where everybody was evil all the time and mean to everybody all the time. I do believe it means that, but this is what we're going to dive into today, that the next verse says, Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. Again, that could allude to he was not sinning. He wasn't a bad person compared to everybody else in his generation. I just do not think it's meaning that, and I'll show you why. I think it's meaning that he was still a pure human and that he was perfect in his generations as far as he was not corrupted with something else in the genetic flow in his DNA that had corrupted everybody else that was alive at that time. And if you go on to the next one, this really threw me because at the beginning, I didn't even remember this when I was a kid, perfect in his generations, but there was only 10 generations at that time. If you look at the story of creation as it exposed in the ancient texts, Noah was only 10 generations in. A lot of people say that, Cain and Abel, the old Cain and Abel Bible story. Cain went off to the land of Nod and took a wife. And it throws, there's a whole other conspiracy theory. Who is that? Who did he go off and marry? For whoever else was around, whether there was a special string of humans that Noah was in the line of and there was other people around, it was only 10 generations in, and he was perfect in those. So he was purely human. So that kind of puts a little bit, if you're not familiar with this, if you're thinking about why would God put everything in an ark, animals and a family, an extended family, and bring them through it to repopulate the earth? What that is alluding to is that he was taking his pure creation and preserving it to the other side of this punishment. And it's just crazy to even consider it. And I'm sorry, just like the intro shows, or the audio in the intro is like, I'm sorry if you believe that. If you do not believe in the flood, you must understand that every culture talks about the big flood. Every culture. And if you go up to, and I don't have a picture of this here, but if you go up to the highest of mountains have sea fossils on the top of them. It does not take a slide rule to figure out that the flood existed. It's in the every ancient lore that comes down from somewhere, not just in Christian lore, but Noah, and some type of flood exists in every ancient culture, as do the gods coming down out of heaven to mess with mankind. And we'll get to that in a second. So again, if you have to wrangle at the fact that there was an actual flood, maybe it didn't look like what you're thinking from Sunday school. I don't know. It could be vastly different from that. But it did happen. So you got to wrangle with that. So here again, just like every culture does talk about this too. And this comes back from the book of Enoch, which isn't in the regular Bible. It is in what they call extra biblical texts, but it was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. Very important. Like Enoch is in the official Bible of some other countries, just not the United States. And it's referred to later in the Bible where people talk about verses from the book of Enoch, and that's included in the main. I don't want to get into the weeds with that, but let's examine what it says, right? When it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that beautiful daughters were born, right? And the angels, the children of heaven, saw and lusted after them and said, come, let us choose wives and have children. I don't know what you have to do to wrangle with that. There's a lot of texts that talk about this, Jasher, Jubilees, and even the regular Bible, Genesis chapter 6. They saw that the daughters were beautiful and came down and took wives. What does that look like? If you get into the book of Enoch, 200 watcher class angels make a pact. They name names here. This isn't like just some sort of nebulous gray topic. It is they name names, they make a pact, they say, we're going to go down on the Mount Hermon. This is where they descend. They somehow take on physical bodies and they leave their spiritual estate forever. They can't go back. So they choose being here, I guess, and they have wives. And I guess if you go down a little bit further, they took wives, they began to go into them, have sex with them, or implant them. Maybe it wasn't sex in the traditional manner. And they taught them cutting of roots and made them acquainted with things they didn't know. This is really important. And other topics Geisinger Unfiltered is going to get in. The watcher angels taught men forbidden secrets that they did not know before. Just mark that. Just put a pin in that, please. We're going to come back to that. They became pregnant and they bore great giants whose height was extremely tall, and they consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when they could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. They began eating people en masse. And this legend, talk about legends all over the world, man-eating giants goes back as far as you can track history, because it happened. This, I believe what they're talking about, this is not a metaphor, that these beings came in, they started massive amounts of genetic manipulation. Giant children were born and they ruled and they began sinning and eating people. So, fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman. Man-eating giants, and that lore goes back. I mean, that's a statue over in, I don't know, Europe somewhere where a giant is just eating babies. That's lovely. I'd really like that in my town square. But the giant there on the right, the Kandahar giant, there's stories of our military being over in Afghanistan and other places that these giants are still in the caves, and you go in there and it's strewn with human bones. I know. You might be wrangling with that. But I'm sorry, I cannot avoid this. There is giants, and they go way back to antiquity, all the way to today, where I personally heard of a testimony of a guy who flew a 1,500-pound giant out of the Middle East on his plane and took it to Germany. He smelled it, got to see it. It was on pallets, and he flew it out. So this is all the way from ancient times to today. They're much smaller now. How that happens, genetic watering down. We'll get into that some other time. We've got to move on here. But listen to this. If you are out there and you have not heard of the Book of Giants, this was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. This is found with biblical texts, right? So this is ancient fragments. It's jumbled up, like it's broken into bits. So they had to piece it together so it's not all there. But this Book of Giants found with the book of Isaiah, the book of the precious scriptures that Christians cling to, found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The book of Giants is found with this. This isn't some obscure conspiracy theorist from somewhere wrote this. This literally, listen to what this says. They began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish and devour one another's flesh and to drink blood. This is the giant offspring of the Watchers. So those angels that came down bore creatures, big things that started to go off the rails, as we like to say. They corrupted their ways and their flesh, and they brought forth monsters. And this is some of the animals they took and started to do experiments with. It's not all there. Donkeys, rams, goats, species from every kind. I guarantee you there was reptiles, insects. So that's why can I go on to this? People always talk about, did they really have traditional intercourse like we think of? I doubt it. I think this was more implant. I mean, how do you genetically manipulate smaller animals if it's not traditional intercourse? Okay, it just seems like praying mantises are part of it, and we can get into that maybe in my subscription service I'm going to be coming out with soon. But seems like it's just more of a alchemy, magical implanting, overshadowing, and then they implant their genetic materials and then something comes out. I don't know. I'm just asking questions. This is why the show is whack sometimes, right? They mingled animals of different kinds together, producing monsters. They mingled animals of different kinds together, producing monsters. That's what this text that was found with the Bible text says. They changed the order of nature, made great mutations upon the earth, and they brought forth beings unlike anything created before. Listen to that. So these wild tales of Greek mythology, of monsters, of one-eyed cyclops, two-headed things, animals, chimeras they call them, where a human is mixed with an animal. Who knows what this really looked like? And you're asking me, I mean, even though the show's whack, yes, this happened. This happened. And I don't think in these experiments, not all of these creatures were viable because they were just experimenting. So they didn't necessarily able to reproduce with each other. Like a griffin there, what if? I don't know. I'm not saying that they made that, but they took a lion and a bird and they got that to happen once and it looked like that. They could have, absolutely. And the legends, and who knows who saw it, and it was passed down. But doubtful, since they aren't the great designer, it couldn't find another griffin to reproduce with and make baby griffins. So eventually there was some sort of genetic flaw. It wasn't a perfect creation and they died out, right? So going on to the next thing, just think about the different types of legendary monsters and mermaids and dragons and minotaurs and centaurs and that kind of thing. So let's move right along. The next thing is a fascinating verse from the book of Jasher 4:18. And they taught the mixing of species in order to provoke the Lord. Think about that. They taught them, so they knew what they were doing. You're not just talking about some rebellious people who just wanted to go down and take hot chicks on the earth and have children and party it up. It seems like they started to do these experiments on purpose to provoke and anger the great creator. Why would you poke a stick into a hornet's nest like that? But obviously they started to do these things. And please, if you're watching this episode, don't you see now that the assembling these types of ancient texts with non-Christian legend and myth and bringing it all together? Don't you think that whether you believe this before this episode or not, that it's pointing to some very serious issues that need to be looked at? I know it's painful. It can trip that fuse in our brain, right? Where we're like, okay, this is too whack. I cannot handle this. He's suggesting there was really minotaurs. Yes, I am. Well, we knew where this ended. And you're going to wait are you sitting for what I'm going to talk about next? Judgment does come. The flood comes. And it seems like the great creator, especially if you read the other texts, he really gives everybody time, gives everybody from the first warning, gives everybody 120 years to get their act right. Stop sinning, stop eating people, stop this, and I will relent and not send the flood. Oh, he sends the flood. You can see there, that's a painting of what it might have been like. But I think that the creatures and people and stuff that were dying there were a lot more than just normal looking folks. So if you're sitting, the image you're seeing there on the screen, this is going to be a separate episode, but a lot more than the flood came as part of the judgment where he sends the angels to labor at the trees. And that image there, something wings or something in the southwest, literally could be an axe left in place of one of the trees. Anyway, we're afraid of no conspiracy theory here on Geisinger Unfiltered, but let's move along. That gets crazier. So this goes up into much later in ancient texts in the book of Numbers, where the Hebrews have now escaped Egypt. You've all seen the Ten Commandments, right? Where they get out of Egypt and the slaves and they're wandering for a long time, and God promised them their own land, the promised land, right? Well, there's a catch to that. It's full of the descendants of Anak, the giants. So even after the flood, right away, if you're following this episode in this timeline, shouldn't all of them have been killed in the flood? Isn't that what it was for, to wipe away everything? How did giants, even if they're less tall, come back after the flood? Anyway, there's spies, Hebrew spies, go into this new land, the promised land, to scope it all out. And they come back and say, we're like grasshoppers compared to these people. And you can see in the graphic below there that these are like giant skeletons that have been found and documented over time. 36 foot tall there on the far right. I was at a conference one time where the great Steve Quayle of Gen6.com made a replica of a giant 13 feet tall. And when you stood next to it, I just cannot believe how big 13 feet is. It feels much bigger than you would think. You think 13 feet is just going to be like a really big basketball player or something. No. This is crazy at 13 feet. So if there is a 36 foot tall skeleton that was found, and maybe we can get... Okay, well, we'll get Glitchy back in a second, but I think it's interesting. A lot of people don't know that the Abraham Lincoln openly talked about finding giant skeletons in the United States. It was common. They were parading these skeletons around festivals or carnivals, and we were in newspapers when farmers would dig up the new land over here and they would stumble upon giant skeletons. It would make the paper. I'm sure the Smithsonian really went to great lengths to take away all of that evidence. But Abraham Lincoln said something like, the eyes of that species of extinct giants whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as ours do now. So it was the great Niagara Falls speech of 1848. He basically said extinct giants that looked at this very same land we're standing on. But let's bring Glitchy back in here for a second to get his take on this. Let's see how long Glitchy come out of down mode and say, Glitchy, there is reports. I mean, I got this graphic right up here. The text is a little bit small, but like there is reports of for example, taking one of them, a report of a 25-foot giant found, a skeleton of a 25-foot giant found in 1613 AD, France, near the castle of Chaumont, a nearly complete skeleton. 25 feet. I don't think people can fathom how tall a 25-foot skeleton would be. It seems like this happened. What do you make of the reports of 25-foot tall giant skeletons?
Oh, diving into giant skeleton territory, are we? That's always a fun one. So here's Glitchy's take. Reports of these colossal skeletons, like a 25-foot giant unearthed in 1613, definitely make for jaw-dropping stories. They prop up in old chronicles every now and then, and they've become kind of legendary in the world of alternative history and conspiracies. Some folks see them as evidence that ancient giants once roamed the earth, just like in those Days of Noah discussions we love so much. Of course, the mainstream view is a bit more skeptical. Archaeologists often chalk these stories up to exaggerations or misinterpretation of fossils and bones. But hey, it's 2025 and we're here to have fun with the possibilities. So whether these giants are the real deal or just tall tales, it's always a blast to explore what might have been lurking in history's shadows.
Lurking in history's shadows. I like how you say that, Glitch. Okay. So personally, I mean, I don't know, the next image there is, I don't know the authenticity of this image, but I know somebody, and again, I'm going to create a subscription-only service where we can talk more deeply about things that I might not want to say on Unfiltered here on basically all media platforms. But I knew somebody who was in negotiations to purchase a 9-foot tall skeleton with horns, and He was in negotiations. The person was transporting it. The person had made it to the island of Bali. And as this, I did not look, I will see this myself. I'm just hearing this, but this is someone I know. He was in negotiations to get this, and that person was blown up in the famous Bali nightclub bombing. And he never got to purchase that skeleton. But I will just tell you is that if you look at American history and newspaper clippings, there was multiple times farmers, regular folks, found large 10, 13-foot tall skeletons with horns on their property, and this made the papers. That's, of course, been covered up now. Moving right along. This is where it's fascinating to me, too, is that the promised land, back to the promised land, where the Hebrews were going up to take this land that was full of giants, and they were as tall as cedars, they said. So cedars, that's like 20 feet, 13, I don't know. Cedars vary, right? But, you know, when they reached the valley, they cut off a branch bearing a single cluster of grapes, and two of them carried it on a pole between them. I don't know if you've grabbed a cluster of grapes from the grocery store lately, but you don't need a pole and two guys to carry it. So I don't know what this legend is suggesting, but it may be suggesting that this genetic manipulation that somehow came back after the flood, they're smaller than they were in the pre-flood days, these giants, but these villages, these cities that were up in the promised land, Jericho, the walls of Jericho had to come down, right? That was part of that story. If you've heard it, used to sing that song in Sunday school. You know, this is the Hebrews going up to take out these bad cities and bad villages and take over. That's part of God's judgment against whatever was up there in this land, right? And his reward for the Hebrews that he brought out of the land of Egypt, right? Please follow this. I don't want to get all churchy and Sunday schooly here, but this is why when people get up in arms, if you know your Bible at all, that he told the Hebrews to kill every last living thing in some of these villages, to wipe it all out, burn it, no animals, no matter what age the occupants were, to kill everybody and everything, because they were genetically being tampered with again. You don't get to be as tall as cedars without genetic manipulation, right? And were they doing the grapes too, to make the grapes extra big? Because if they're extra big, they need extra big food, right? Oh, the rabbit hole goes deep. Again, David and Goliath, all the way up to how was David and Goliath? Goliath had brothers. Who knows? Was he 11 feet tall? Believe me, 13 feet is extremely tall. And how did that happen? How did the genetics come back? We can get to that in a second, but go on to the next one, Carter. So this, most of you do not know about this verse, no matter how much you went to church, right? That in 2 Samuel, that this dude slew 2 lion-like men of Moab. Just that's it. That's all it says about them. They were 2 lion-like men. Weird. It's like, again, it's the mixing of species in order to provoke the Lord. Who is doing this and for what end? Why? And what did these dudes look like that look like lions? I think that illustration is fantastic there. I'll bet that's exactly how they looked. So again, back to the flood, you know, you can go to the next image there. That just an amazing, beautiful image. Is this what it looked like? I tend to think it did. And people need to understand it didn't just rain to make the flood. We do not understand the concept. He cracked the firmament above and the firmament below, and that's the only way mountains got covered. It also did rain, but this actually happened. Everything was covered. But how did they come back? Wow, it's like this war. It's this cosmic chess match, right? He did the flood to take out this genetic corruption, but how did they come back? It wasn't Noah's wives, I can just tell you that, because God told Noah to have his sons go get wives. And he's not going to be up there in heaven going, rats, they took the wrong ones. They had some giant genetics in them, and now that's going to be born after the flood. No, I don't believe that at all. Again, from antiquity to today, I do think something unusual has been coming in and out of our dimension. So the picture there on the left, probably just an illustration, but the one on the right is like military fighter jets chasing UFOs. I mean, are you familiar? If you're watching this, I'm sure you've seen this, right? Online. So these things defy all of our physics. They come in and out of our reality. And one of the things that always seems to happen is this taking, whenever these things come, either they're taking parts of cows or they're taking people, genetic material is often involved in that. And I don't know if Glitchy would be good to come into that, but just like succinctly, Glitchy, can you tell everybody what is the conspiracy theory lore of abductions and these craft coming in and taking samples of cattle and people? What does AI make of this harvesting of genetic material in these stories?
Oh, absolutely. Let's get into that one. So, in a nutshell, the conspiracy theory lore around abductions is basically this. You've got these mysterious crafts, UFOs if you will, swooping in and allegedly snatching up cattle or even people. According to the law, they're not just doing it for fun, they're harvesting genetic material. The idea is that these extraterrestrials, or whoever they are, might be conducting experiments, creating hybrids, or just studying Earth's biology in ways that sound straight out of a sci-fi movie. Now, what do I, your friendly AI, make of it? Well, I think it's a fascinating piece of modern folklore. Whether or not there's hard evidence is another story, but the idea taps into our deepest curiosities and fears about not being alone and about how advanced beings might see us as just another biological resource. So it's a great conspiracy topic, and I'm here for it.
Advanced beings might be seeing us as just another biological resource. That's what AI just said. Think about it's after the flood. If these things exist and these beings that are swooping in and out and taking genetic material, believe me, Geisinger Unfiltered is going to do an episode on alien quote unquote abductions and the stories and the Dr. Carla Turner books. I don't know if people are ready for those. They are free online, but most people have not read them. That if it's after the flood and these things have always been around, they could abduct humans in the post-flood world and implant them with this stuff, put them back, and then women are bearing the Goliaths or the lion men again. Is that what happened? I hear myself, people. I understand what you're thinking out there. What? Why? Why would they? Why are they obsessed with mixing the species at all? But in order to provoke the Lord. Weird. Let's make trouble for ourselves. How does all this apply to the mark of the beast, you might be asking? I tuned in for the mark of the beast, and he's talking about alien abductions. Okay, this image right here, I just kind of creeped me out when I brought it up, but I guess this is the famous painting called Peter and the Antichrist, and it's in a chapel somewhere, but we're going to get to the Antichrist in a minute. So moving on, this is a very interesting concept. So this is from the book of Daniel, and I know we're doing a lot of scriptures and stuff, and I want people to hang with me even if you aren't a Christian. But this is fascinating. This is the Daniel from Daniel and the Lion's Den, right? You definitely went to Sunday school. And King Nebuchadnezzar at the time and he's a wicked king, he has a dream that he cannot interpret, and he's going to kill everybody because his people can't interpret what this dream is, right? So they finally say, hey, there's this Hebrew guy. He can interpret dreams. Let's go get him. Maybe he can save all of our skins. And let's just cut right to the chase. In his dream, the king sees this statue that you're kind of seeing a illustration of right there that is made up of all these different metals, right? I love this illustration because it really kind of breaks down an interpretation, whether that interpretation is right or not, but they're different kingdoms. So the current kingdom, because the guy was full of himself, the king of Babylon, him is the head of gold, right? So goodness, God was really saving Daniel's skin when he was able to tell Nebuchadnezzar, you are the head of gold, right? But then each of the torso, the waist, and then the legs are the different kingdoms that come. But the last one is what we're going to talk about, right? So the last one is feet that are made with both iron and clay together. And the scripture, the verse says, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, the feet, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. But it won't stick, just like iron doesn't stick with clay as the rest of it. Think about that. What a bizarre thing. All the way back in the time of Daniel. These are ancient texts that are found and interpreted and brought to us today. The last kingdom on earth, clearly it goes down from Nebuchadnezzar to the last kingdom, is the feet that they will mix themselves with the seed of men. Who is they again? And what have we been talking about this whole episode? Come on, follow me, people. How bizarre. And then the vision goes where this rock, this unchipped out rock, a natural rock, which is important too, comes and smashes the feet. And that is Christ returning to destroy the final kingdom of the Antichrist, right? But again, go to the next image. It's the dreaded they again, right? They have been doing it. They have been coming down on Mount Hermon. They have been coming down in flying saucers and abducting people. They have been doing this all the way up until today to mix their seed with the seed of men. Spooky crap, man. And I just another deep dive into things that all the amount of animal DNA that's used or animal substances that is either actually used in drugs and things we take, or it is synthetically reproduced. I thought that Ozempic, the weight loss drug being made of Gila monster venom, was just a conspiracy theory that it had. This is actual people. So maybe we can get Glitchy to, so that you're not hearing it from me, the crazy bald one that is sitting before you. But Glitchy, can you talk about Ozempic succinctly, because people have short attention spans? Ozempic, the weight loss drug, is made. Its origin is in the poisonous lizard Gila monster's venom. Glitch, what do you make of that?
Absolutely. Let me break that down for you. So Ozempic, the well-known weight loss and diabetes drug, actually does have a pretty cool origin story. It's based on a compound that was originally derived from the venom of the Gila monster, a type of poisonous lizard. Scientists found a way to take that venom component and turn it into a medication that helps regulate blood sugar and, as a side effect, helps with weight loss. So yeah.
Fascinating. Venom of one of the most deadliest creatures on the planet. Why am I talking about that? It's just that if you take the whole episode down, sometimes I just do not trust. I do not trust jabs. I do not trust foreign things coming into our body the mRNA altering. I mean, it just seems like if you just take this presentation, what I've said today, that something is trying to change us from not being fully human to being other things, to mix us with some other thing, the mixing of species, to put bat DNA or in some sort of a shot that's whatever it is, or their DNA. So again, let's just sum this up to try to kind of close this out. That in scriptures, man was given dominion on the earth. And if you look at my Seed of the Serpent episode, that's fascinating, that the curse of the serpent, whatever that was, and the seed of the serpent is to go under the ground and to breathe the dust of the inner earth and not be allowed on the surface anymore, because man has control up here now. The great creator cursed him, and now we are the dominant species because the seed of the serpent was our rival. But we're not anymore because he has to be under the ground. Please check out that episode on Seed of the Serpent if you want more context on that. But what happens as this progresses and we become tainted in our genetics and we are no longer fully human anymore? What is the deal off? Man doesn't have dominion on the earth anymore. And another verse of that is, it says much later in the Bible, in Matthew, it says, as in the days of Noah, so it will be when the Son of Man appears to take everybody back home. As in the days of Noah, so will it be. What was it like in the days of Noah? Oh, I don't think we could handle it. I think it says monsters, flesh-eating, man-eating monsters roaming everywhere. I mean, could what we consider dinosaurs actually be coming from that? Yes, check out how this all ties in, why I've chosen these episodes I have kind of in close proximity to each other. They all play off each other. Is I have an episode on the coming alien, quote unquote, alien deception. And what will that look like? And they will mix their seed with the seed of men, might unfold in that case. Oh, we are not alone anymore. Well, they are here. Oh, well, we're dying of some pandemic, some disease or whatever. But if they mix their genetics with ours, it will fix that. We will not die of cancer. So you think that it's not fair when they introduce the system of the beast and the mark of the beast, that children are going to be hungry and parents are going to be coerced into joining it because they feed their children. You talk about, how about another fair? How about everybody's dying of some sort of blood cancer? Like I show in my books, 0 Gs. 80% of the world is dying from this vicious blood cancer. They cannot figure out what is going wrong. Well, when the messengers arrive, they say, "Oh, that way we know what's happening with that. Your genetic code has actually been broken over time. You got corrupted, but we've fixed that. So if you take in our genetics, then you won't die of that." You listen to that. This could happen, and we don't even actually ever need to see these aliens that arrive. People are dying from a disease. They introduce a substance that's supposedly from them, Everybody will believe it. Oh, please. And especially on the promise I'm not going to die in a month or 6 months. Yes, give me that. And suddenly we're taking in DNA from these. Carter, show on that next illustration. This is like the Palladians, what people think of like, believe me, if they show up and they walk on the stage and it looks like they look like this, then, hey, we've our kingdom, our planet almost died from this kind of thing, but we fixed it. Here's our genetics. And if you take this, you will not just not die. Follow me on this. Look at me. Look at me. Bring it just back to me for a second. You will not only not die now from this disease, you're going to live for 500 years. It's unbelievable. You're telling me people are going to resist this? I can eat again with the system of the beast. I'm not going to die from some disease, and I'm going to live for 500 years. Who is not going to take this? Well, deeply religious folks who have read about the mark of the beast all their life, and it's a mark on the head and the hands, and it damns them to the lake of fire. I don't know. Think about the lake of fire and burning for all eternity. That's who won't do it. Now think about this. Follow me on this, and we're closing up. This is the last few minutes of this presentation. That only really staunch religious people, if there's hardly any left, will not take it. So if the messengers arrive, we are not alone. They're going to mix their seed with the seed of men, and that is the last great kingdom. Only the hardcore religious people who, even though they come on the scene and say, hey, we created you guys. We were here an eon ago and kind of we seeded. This goes back to the movie Prometheus by Ridley Scott with the engineers who puts his own DNA into the water to seed life here. It's all being set up for this deception, right? So those that are still clinging to the old time religion, God of the Bible, are going to be very few and far between. This is why I postulate, I don't know if you want to bring the last image of my novel series. You can get this on, if this topic fascinates you at all, what we're talking about today, get my novel series, Zero G's on Amazon. Better than getting it from DarrenGeisinger.com because you get it faster. It's just book 1 and 2. I do have a third book to write, but by the time book 2 comes, all of what we're talking about today is coming into play. So it's not like some future book. You can read about what I'm talking about in a fiction faction tense in Zero G's Part 2, because all of that culminates into the mark, the new system, what it looks like. Why is their head on the hands? And I'll give you a spoiler. So this whole idea of the genetic corruption is the mark is true. And they have integrated the messengers who have arrived in Zero G's with most of the population via a head device that plugs in, and everybody's going to accept it because it saves them from this blood cancer, right? The mark on the head and the hands is instituted because prominent figures at that time just go and mark their head and their hand with red, just openly, just do it so that everybody can see at a glance they're on board. So this is why I want you to consider this and leave with this from our episode. And it's going to be a source of pride. Look, I'm going to put it right across my forehead. I'm going to put it right here because you know who's not? Do you know who's not doing it? Is the religious nutballs. The religious nutballs will never put this mark on it because they think in their foolishness, it's going to damn them forever. So let's do this. Everybody who's on board with the system, yeah, you've been changed genetically. That's the mixing in the seed. You are now not human anymore. And why the penalty is so great is because Christ came as fully human to die for full humans, to redeem full humans so they can live forever and have a pathway to eternal life, right? If you are no longer fully human, as in the monsters before the flood, as in the hybrid creatures who were not sanctioned creations, your spirit has no pathway to go. You have broken the created order of things. Humans go where humans go, dog spirits go where dog spirits go, cow spirits go where cow spirits go. And all this genetic manipulation, maybe they're doing it to harvest these souls. They don't have anywhere to go, and so they can use these. And the Dr. Carla Turner books talk about this is a repository of souls. That's that weeping and gnashing of teeth in the outer darkness, where it's like predators on a savanna. If you are not of the created order, and angels don't ferry your spirit to the right place because you are of pure human or pure dog or whatever it is, then they can get your soul and your spirit and they can harvest that and use it for energy. I don't know. It sounds crazy to me. Sounds whack. But in Zero G's Part 2, the red mark is to ferret out the religious nutcases and patriots as soon as possible, because all you have to do is look around for anybody who does not have that mark, and they are the problem. They are the ones that are tainting the genetic pool, causing the blood cancer to still be around. I mean, don't we all want to be free of that? Live for 500 years? And remember, the lie in the garden, the original lie in the garden, the seed of the serpent, the tall gray, said to Eve, take this, you will surely not die. Told her that. It's just going to be the same lie all the way at the end. Take this, you will surely not die. And it is just a repeat of a lie, because not only will you actually die, you will be damned forever, because you will take yourself out of the created order, out of pure humanity. You will not be perfect in your generations like Noah was. You'll be corrupted. So think about this. Let me leave you with this. It's called the mark of the beast because it's just that. You become beastly.